There is an idea, 2,000 years old, created by a man who was born a slave. And if you actually understood it, I mean really understood it, not just heard it and nodded along, it would eliminate roughly 90% of everything you have ever been stressed about. 90%. Your anxiety about work. The argument you keep replaying in your head. The fear of what other people think of you. The future you cannot control. The past you cannot change. Gone, not managed, not coped with, gone. This is what is Stoicism actually. Not the Instagram version. Not the quotes on a sunset background. The real thing. And stick with me, because the part that actually changes things is coming. Before we get to the idea itself, let me give you Stoicism 101, the fundamentals. Because most people get this completely wrong. Stoicism was founded around 300 BCE in Athens by a philosopher named Zeno. He taught in a painted porch called the Stoa Poikile. That is where the name comes from. The painted porch, not from being stone-faced, not from suppressing emotions. Stoicism today is massively misunderstood. People think it means being emotionless, never crying, never getting excited. That is not what the Stoics taught at all. The Stoics believed in 3 pillars of philosophy: logic, physics, and ethics. Logic was about clear thinking. Physics was about understanding how the world actually works. And ethics, this was the practical part, was about how to live a good life. What makes Stoicism different from most philosophy is that it was designed to be used, not debated in universities, applied, right now, when someone insults you, when you lose your job, when everything falls apart. And the greatest teacher of practical Stoicism, the person who took these ideas and made them into tools you can actually use, was not an emperor or a general. He was a slave. But here is the interesting part that nobody talks about. His name was Epictetus, and it is worth knowing his story because it changes how you hear everything he says. Epictetus was born around 55 CE in Hierapolis, in what is now modern Turkey. His name literally means acquired. He was property, a slave in the household of a man named Epaphroditus, who was the secretary to the Roman Emperor Nero. Now, here is where the story takes a turn. At some point, his leg was broken. The historical sources disagree on whether it was deliberate or accidental. What we know for certain is that it never healed properly. Epictetus walked with a limp for the rest of his life. But here is what makes his story extraordinary. While he was still enslaved, Epictetus was allowed to study philosophy under a great teacher named Musonius Rufus, and he absorbed those lessons completely. After Nero died and Epictetus was freed, he opened his own school in a place called Nicopolis in Greece. Students came from across the Roman Empire to learn from him. One of those students was a young man named Arrian. Arrian did something that changed history. He wrote down everything Epictetus said, word for word. Those writings became the Discourses of Epictetus, 8 books of lectures, of which 4 survive today. And then Arrian did something even more important. He condensed those 8 books into a short handbook, a pocket guide to Stoic wisdom. He called it the Enchiridion, Greek for handbook or manual. If you have ever looked up Epictetus quotes or Stoicism quotes online, almost all of them come from the Enchiridion. Later in life, Epictetus became famous. The Emperor Hadrian himself visited his school in Nicopolis. Imagine that, an emperor traveling to learn from a former slave with a limp. That is the power of these ideas. For centuries after his death, the Enchiridion was carried by Roman soldiers, studied by Christian monks, and read by emperors and prisoners alike. It survived the fall of Rome. It survived the Dark Ages. It made its way into the modern world completely intact. And here is why it still matters to you. You know the feeling. It is 2 a.m. You are supposed to be asleep. Instead, you are lying there, replaying a conversation from 3 years ago, wondering what you should have said, what they think of you now. Or maybe it is the future that owns your mind, the job interview, the difficult conversation you need to have, the health concern you are waiting to hear back about. It does not even matter what it is. What matters is this: something outside of you has taken over your internal state. Your peace is not your own anymore. It has been leased out to things you cannot control. And here is what is wild about this. 2,000 years ago, Epictetus stood in a room and described your 2 a.m. anxiety perfectly. Not just described it, he solved it. With one distinction so clean, so precise, that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Here it is. Prepare yourself, because it sounds so simple you might miss it. Do not miss it. The Enchiridion opens with these words. I will give you the actual Epictetus quote. Some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us. That is it. The first sentence of the Enchiridion. The foundation of Epictetus Stoicism. Our opinions are up to us. Our impulses, desires, aversions, whatever is our own doing, our mind, our perspective, our judgments, our choices, that is it. That is the full list. Here is what is not up to us. Our body, our reputation, our job, our possessions, whether we get the promotion, whether our relationship works out, the economy, the weather, what other people think of us, what other people say about us. Notice something? The list of things you do not control is infinite, and the list of things you do control is tiny, almost insultingly small. Your mind, your choices, your perspective, that is it. And this is where most people completely miss the point of Epictetus Stoicism. They hear focus on what you control, and they interpret it as, try harder to control the things you cannot control. That is not what Epictetus is saying. He is saying something much more radical. He is saying, stop categorizing events as good or bad at all. Because if something is outside your control, labeling it bad does not change the event. It only adds your suffering to the event. The event itself is neutral. Your judgment of it, and nothing else, creates your experience of it. Let me say that again, because it is the most important sentence in this entire video. It is not events that disturb people. It is their judgments about events. That is a direct Epictetus quote from the Enchiridion, 2,000 years old, and it is the skeleton key to everything. This is what how to keep calm actually looks like, not a technique, a fundamental shift in how you see reality. Let me show you how this works in practice. Imagine 2 scenarios. Same external event, 2 different people. Scenario, you are up for a promotion. You have worked hard. You deserve it. The day comes. The promotion goes to someone else. Person A's response, anger, resentment, despair. This is unfair. I deserve better. Why does this always happen to me? The system is rigged. My boss hates me. Person A is now suffering, and here is the key. The event is over. The promotion was decided, but person A's suffering has just begun. They will ruminate for weeks, lose sleep, show up bitter at work. Now person B. Same event. Person B's response. That is disappointing. I wanted it. Now, what is up to me here? I can ask for feedback. I can improve my skills. I can control my response to this setback. Same event, vastly different outcomes. And here is the thing, person B understands that person A does not. The promotion was never up to them. When you stake your peace on things you cannot control, you have essentially handed the keys to your emotional house to complete strangers. And then you are surprised when they trash the place. This is what stop clinging to it means in practice. Not giving up, not becoming passive, recognizing what was never yours to hold in the first place. Epictetus would say, your peace was never theirs to take. You gave it to them, and you can take it back. To make this actually usable, I want to give you a framework. I call it the 3 fields. Everything in your life falls into one of these 3 fields. Field 1, what you completely control. Your thoughts, your judgments, your responses, your character. This field is small, sacred, inviolable. Nobody can enter it without your permission. Field 2, what you influence but do not control. Your health, your career, your relationships. You can exercise, but you cannot guarantee you will not get sick. You can be a great partner, but you cannot guarantee they will stay. This is where you take action, but you do not attach your peace to the outcome. Field 3. What you neither control nor influence. The weather, the economy, other people's opinions, the past, traffic, politics. Investing any emotional energy here is pure waste. Now, let me give you real examples of how to practice Stoicism using these fields in daily life. Someone insults you. Which field is that in? Field 3. Other people's words are not up to you. You cannot control what comes out of their mouth. You can control your response. You are in a difficult relationship. Which field? Field 2. You can influence it. You can communicate honestly. You can show up as your best self, but you cannot control the other person's choices. Focus on your action. Release the outcome. You are stressing about the news, the economy, politics. Which field? Field 3. It was never yours to carry. The world will continue being chaotic whether you stress about it or not. Put it down. This is practical Stoicism in action. Now, I want to be clear about something. This is not a Stoicism TED Talk. It is not about positive thinking or manifesting or just choosing happiness. Stoicism is about seeing things accurately. The Stoics believed that most suffering comes from faulty judgments, from telling ourselves stories that are not true. Here is something most people do not know. Modern cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, was directly inspired by Stoicism and life principles. The founder of CBT, Aaron Beck, explicitly cited Epictetus in his work. The idea that your thoughts create your emotions, not events themselves, that came from a former slave in ancient Greece. Millions of people today practice CBT without knowing they are doing Stoicism, and millions more have discovered Stoicism through modern teachers like Ryan Holiday and the Daily Stoic movement, which has brought these ancient ideas to a new generation. Stoicism and life are not separate things. Stoicism is for life. It was designed for the battlefield, the prison cell, the deathbed, not for the library. Use it where it hurts, and here is why you can trust it. Unlike self-help trends that come and go every few years, Stoicism has survived for 2 millennia. It has been tested by emperors and slaves, soldiers and prisoners. It has been validated by modern clinical psychology. Very few ideas in human history have that kind of track record. Now, if you are thinking, that sounds great in theory, but I have real problems. I have bills to pay, a difficult boss, family members who depend on me. You are telling me to just not care. I hear you. And so did Epictetus. The Stoics were not passive. They were not telling people to check out and let the world burn. Quite the opposite. Epictetus himself was born a slave. His leg was broken and never healed. He walked with a limp for the rest of his life. This is not a man who did not know real suffering. What he discovered, what the Stoics discovered, is that between any event and your response to it, there is a gap, a small space, and in that space lies your freedom. The event happens. The promotion is lost. The relationship ends. The diagnosis comes. And for a fraction of a second, there is silence. In that silence, you get to choose. Nobody can make that decision for you. This is not about not caring. It is about caring about the right things. Your peace of mind is the most valuable asset you own, and you have been giving it away for free to things that do not deserve it. The Stoics would say, you have been suffering twice, once from the event itself, and once, much worse, from your story about the event. The event is over. The story is optional. You can stop telling it. Here is how to practice Stoicism starting tomorrow morning. One simple practice. When you wake up, before you check your phone, before you do anything else, sit for 60 seconds and ask yourself 3 questions. Question 1. What am I going to face today that is outside my control? Traffic, a difficult colleague, bad news, other people's moods. Name them. See them clearly. Question 2. What is in my control today? My effort, my attitude, my responses, how I treat people, what I focus on. Name these 2. Question 3. When am I most likely to forget this today? Be honest. Is it when you check your email? When you talk to a specific person? When you look at social media? Identify your trigger points. This takes 60 seconds. That is it. And throughout the day, when you feel that familiar tightening, the stress, the anxiety, the anger, pause, just for 3 seconds, and ask, which field is this in? If it is outside your control, and most things are, put it down. Not because you do not care, but because you do care. You care enough about your own peace to protect it. You care enough about the people who depend on you to show up as your best self. This is not weakness. This is not passivity. This is the most powerful form of discipline there is, the discipline of knowing what to care about and what to release. The discipline that Epictetus discovered in chains, that Marcus Aurelius practiced while running the largest empire on earth. Epictetus died almost 2,000 years ago, but his final words to his students are still recorded. He said, "I have to die. If it is now, well then I die now. If later, then now I will take my lunch, since the hour for lunch has come. And dying, I will tend to later." What he meant was, even death, the ultimate thing outside our control, does not get to steal this moment. I will deal with it when it comes. Right now, I am having lunch. That is the level of freedom we are talking about. Not freedom from difficulty, freedom from being owned by difficulty. That is the promise of Epictetus Stoicism. Now, here's the thing. The Stoics had one answer to this problem, a powerful one. But a few thousand years later, a group of French philosophers looked at the exact same question and came to a completely different conclusion. They said, the Stoics are right about control, but they are missing something deeper. And honestly, their answer is even more liberating. But that is for next time. On Mindscape Philosophy, Albert Camus and the Art of Not Caring. A philosophy that does not just accept the darkness, it teaches you to love it. Subscribe so you do not miss it. And if Stoicism spoke to you, the Examined Life playlist has more episodes that build on everything you learned today. This is Mindscape Philosophy. 60 seconds, 3 questions, tomorrow morning. See you next week.